Showtime. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Rosie and Bill Show. Over the last few years, we have had a wide variety of guests from various musical genres, but tonight our guest incorporates many different musical genres in his band's music, and the result is a unique, inspirational musical ride. Please welcome to the Rosie and Bill Show from the Jason Lee McKinney Band, Jason Lee McKinney. Hi, Jason.
Hey, how are you guys?
We're doing great. We're so happy to have you on the show today.
I'm very happy to be here.
All right. Well, I'm going to jump right in, Jason, and get started. And what I'd like to do is, because we know you've got a lot going on, a lot of great things, a new album coming out, all that great stuff. But I'd like to just take a little bit of a look back because you've been putting out great music. You and your band have been putting out great music for a long time now. And what I'm curious about is if we were to turn the clock back to when this all got started, what was it that inspired you to get the band together and to set out on this mission that you set out on over a decade ago?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. This is not my first band. Obviously, most people it's not. I've been on several labels before, and I went through a very difficult time in my life, and I left the music industry, and I thought I would never come back. I didn't even listen to music for a year. I was just talk radio. It was either sports radio or talk radio. I didn't want to touch it, anything to do with it. And I eventually had, I became a brand development manager for a golf equipment manufacturer. I don't play golf, by the way, so I have no interest in it, but that's what I did. And I ended up, that company was owned by Sir Alan Stanford, who got caught in a Ponzi scheme. So what a lot of people don't know is when the SEC comes in and seizes a company, you have to continue to operate, but you can't make anything or sell anything or talk about selling anything. So basically, I just took all my vacation time, ended up hooking up with a buddy of mine. Basically, told me, he's like, "Have you written any songs?" I was like, "I've not done anything. I'm done. I'm out." And what I went through a divorce, and he said, "Have you written about the divorce?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, let's try that." And so I wrote about the divorce, very, very sad song off of our first record called June 7th. And then I played it for another buddy of mine who was an A&R guy. He's actually the president of Universal Music Group here in Nashville now. And he cried. So I was like, "Oh, well, that's a response." Played it for a buddy of mine who was a drummer for several big country acts, and he cried. And then I played it for a buddy of mine who was the chief marketing officer for a major healthcare corporation. And he not only cried, but he also wrote me a check to go finish a record. And that's how I ended up back in it. I thought I was done forever. He cut me a check, said, "Go do what you got to do." And it ended up, I just fell back into it. And so I would have never imagined that 12 years later, we'd still be going. And we've have 11 studio records and a live album, and we've been to 5 of the 7 continents. Never been to Australia or Antarctica, and I want to go to one of the two. I won't tell you which one, but one of them I want to go to. The other one they can have.
Really? You really want to go to Antarctica that bad?
Yeah, exactly. That's the one I want to go to. No, too cold for me.
Wow. There are so many things that you just said there that I'm like, which one do we tackle first? So I'm going to try and tie it together. On your website, you talked about exploration. How important was this exploration in your time away from the music business to bringing all this together?
I think a few things really happened to me. My life got very simplified. In a 6-month period, I lost my father to cancer. I lost my marriage, and because I lost my marriage, I left my record deal, and so I lost my career. And I became basically just work and become dad. And that was the only things that existed and the only things that mattered. And what I learned to do is to stop putting all of my self-esteem into how many t-shirts I sold that night. And it was a huge lesson. It was a crushing experience, but out of it, sort of like a blacksmith, like a refining thing, that I wouldn't be the person I am today without going through that. I'm grateful for that painful experience because it finally caused me to face the fact that I have to be somebody other than the recording artist. And if that's all I am, because it's like an athlete, a professional athlete, at someday you're going to, they always say you're going to lace up the cleats one last time, and that's going to be it. So that can't be who you are. It's what I do. It's not who I am. And I think I learned that from it. It's not who I am. It's what I do.
Wow. How important, and Bill, then I'll let you get in your next question. How important did faith play in that experience?
Oh, it was a massive part, because when everything is stripped away, you're left with little else but faith. You don't have anything else. We like to mask everything by like keeping ourselves so busy. And I've got this plan and I've got that plan. And I love philosopher Soren Kierkegaard. And he talks about the lilies of the field and the birds of the air and how they fulfill their existence just by being what they are. So when the lily blooms, is it the apex of its growth or is it the beginning of its death? And Kierkegaard says that the lily doesn't care. It's just being what it is. And so I think those are the moments where you have to lean on faith because you don't have anything else to lean on. There's no grand goal. There's no thing you're about to achieve. There's no raise you're about to get. There's nothing left except just you existing, and you're here. So then do you have faith? Do you matter? Do you still matter when there's no goals being achieved?
I say yes.
Yeah. I came to that conclusion too, but it was a painful experience.
Of course.
I have to say, Jason, this is really, really a great conversation. And one of the things that we love about doing this show is we'll always have some things prepared to talk about, but we just love it when we hear some of the things like we just heard from you and talking about that experience. And then the conversation is just going to go where it goes. And I initially was going to ask you about that diversity of your music, as Rosie said in the intro, about different genres and the way you kind of blend and mix genres. But I'm wondering, before I get to those questions, did that experience you went through cause you to, maybe as you were coming back, to not worry about genres the way some other folks might at another point in their career, and just kind of putting out music that was who you are, like the lily?
Yeah, absolutely. This is obviously not my first band. I was signed before, but everything became about, and I wasn't joking, like I'd be in the middle of performing a show and I'd be constantly looking over at the merchandise thinking, I hope we're moving enough that I can pay for this, or I hope that radio single. And I was constantly mad. I was the opening act for huge acts, but I was always mad that I was the opening act. I never enjoyed it. And I determined when I came back to it going, I want to take every single experience and enjoy it. And for sure, I've taken the approach that I'm going to make music that makes me happy, that I feel, that I'm going to be honest with, and I'm not going to worry about, because the people that inspire me, they weren't concerned about that. They weren't concerned about pleasing the industry. Like I grew up being inspired by Led Zeppelin, Prince, Rich Mullins. In a different way, Rich Mullins, not so much musically, but lyrically. These people didn't care. I mean, they cared deeply, but they didn't care what the industry thought about what they were doing. They cared about what was true to them and trying to communicate something to the audience.
Well, how much easier or more difficult? Because I have my own assumption, but I'm curious to hear from you in terms of that willingness to just be open to different genres, different types of music, different things. From a creative standpoint, when you're creating new music, I'm assuming that kind of maybe removes some boundaries that might not otherwise be there. And does that make it easier for you and your bandmates to create?
I think it does. And it comes from an authentic place. We don't kind of go around trying to grab whatever pieces of genres we can. I say this often. I grew up in a household where my dad was very much an old sort of classic country and folk fan, like loved that stuff. And then I have a brother who's 11 years older than me, and he was into all the rock and roll, and Styx and Rush and all that stuff. And then my mom was very much into R&B, Hall & Oates and Earth, Wind & Fire and Marvin Gaye. And so when you hear our music, it all comes from those places, but that's very authentic is what I grew up. I was the little one, so I didn't get to choose the radio. It was just all what was coming at me. And so it's all very authentic. And I just decided not to like, people always said, they always say to me, you can't decide what you want to be. And it's like, no, I've very much decided what I want to be. I want to be a little bit of all of these. And after 11 albums, I think I'm showing you what I want to be. I'm going to continue to put elements of all of these into it.
I want to ask you about the theme of hope and joy in your life and in your music. Why is it important to you to be that vessel of hope, and where does the inspiration come from?
That's great. I like that. And we've not always, if you look at our entire catalog, we've not always been hopeful. Our number one first thing is to be authentic to where we're at in the moment. And so, but over the last couple years, we've really got to the point of the world is so just divided, and everything from the war in Ukraine to the elections to social media, everything is so negative. The pandemic, everything is so that it's just like, I don't want to be a part of that. I just want to be a part of expressing joy and hope. I always say that if hope were a drug, I want to be the Pablo Escobar of hope. I want to be the largest cartel dealer in hope. Because everyone needs that. Everyone needs hope. We share so much as a human existence. For me, it very much comes from my faith. That's where hope ultimately in the face, no matter what circumstances are, I can have faith that ultimately this is going to be for my good. Just like the experience I talked about. Even I would have never wished divorce on me. I would have never wished my father passing, but I learned a lot of things out of it that I would have never learned. And sometimes I think humans, we focus on like pain. It's like, why is there so much evil in the world? Why is there so much pain? We ask those questions. But if you look at it, take courage, for example, you can't have courage if there's nothing to be afraid of. So we should be grateful for the fact there's something to be afraid of, because that gives us the opportunity to have courage. And so that to me is like, that's where it comes, like there's always hope, even in negative circumstances. And I would much rather focus on that than I would the fact that the negative circumstance exists. And not in some Pollyanna way that like denies that the pain or the evil is there, but in a way that says, hey, this is an opportunity for me to show that I can overcome it and I can actually turn an evil into good.
That's beautiful, and that's very inspirational.
It really is. And that's something, as you were saying, especially these last couple of years and everything that pretty much all of us have been through, I think hope and faith are more important than ever. And I applaud you for being that vessel and going out and having that as part of your mission to bring that and to spread that. And as I said, we can't get enough of it. And that's something that we try to do as well with our show, is spread positivity, talk about some good news, and have inspirational people like you on the show really helps us do that. So thank you for that, Jason. I wanted to just switch gears a little bit, because there's something else outside of your music that was really impressive. I'm going to see if I can get this right without the aid of a teleprompter.
Okay.
So you have a doctorate, an MBA, an MA, a BA. You have pretty much all the letters, and very, very impressive. And I'm curious, have your academic achievements, accomplishments, and background influenced you as an artist? And if so, how?
Absolutely, they have. I'm just a curious person, and if you take like a song, and this is going to sound super nerdy, but just allow me to go nerdy for a second, like Without End off the
Be
new
yourself,
album.
be authentic.
Yeah. Without End on the new album, I'm quoting Saint Bonaventure, a 13th century monk. Now, I hope I weave it in a way that doesn't make it awkward or weird as far as like our modern ears hearing the English. But he talks about how God is the center and circumference of all being. And I'm quoting him in that. And so to me, that very much informs what I do. The more information I can take in. And so let me explain it this way. Let me back up for a second. A lot of writers just write continually. I don't. I have this sort of flow of like, I write and I spill it all out. And then I have a time period where I don't write and I'm just reading books and I'm taking in information and I'm filling back up and then I spill it back out. And so it absolutely has informed what we do. And in fact, this album particularly, Like even the simple blues song of "Sing On," I'm quoting Simone Weil and Marilyn McCord Adams. I'm quoting these people in these, and I'm quoting Simone from Gravity and Grace, one of her. And of course, she's an early 20th century French theologian. Like, and people look at me like, why? Like, quote Dave Chappelle like normal people. Like, but that's just not me. It's not who I am. And so it absolutely has informed. And I love when lyrics are much deeper. You have the surface level, right, reading lyrics, and you can take it on that level. But when you find out and you dig underneath, it's like, oh, like on the last album that we did, New Strings on an Old Guitar, I actually quote the little kid book, The Little Prince. And I think that stuff's super cool. That I'm quoting The Little Prince, a children's book, and nobody really knows that. And so I find that stuff fascinating. I find it life-giving. I find that it, on the surface, you don't notice it. You just listen for the melody. But as you've listened to a song over and over and over again, one of the things that allows you to keep coming back is lyrical depth. And when the lyrical depth is there, you don't get tired of it as fast. You can keep coming back to it, and like peeling an onion, you're discovering new layers of meaning all the time.
Right. Yeah. There's always something new to discover.
Yeah, and I have to share something, partner, before you jump in with your next question, because you talked about with that end and the center and the circumference. This is a true story. First time I listened to the song, I heard circumference, and wait a minute, I don't know that I've ever heard that used in a song before. I had to rewind it and listen to it again because I was blown away at how you made that work.
But the greatest thing about you is you came to save. The greatest thing about you is you defeated the grave. The greatest thing about you is you call me by name. You're the center and the circumference. Love with no beginning and without end.
Yeah, I try to use language that isn't normal to songs, but the great effort is to not make it weird. I don't want to make a song. I don't want to distract from a song because I put in some word like obsequious or something. I want it to flow and be natural as well. So I appreciate that you felt that it flowed.
So my question is obsequious part of any lyrics of your songs as of yet?
No, but I did have a good friend of mine in the very first band I was signed with. The keyboard player tried to write a song and put obsequious in it. And I was like, buddy, I just don't think this works, man. It was really, so, but yeah, I have heard it used in a song.
You have.
It's not mine.
Funny. Okay. I think you probably did really well on the SAT tests in the vocabulary section.
I didn't take the SATs.
Oh,
I
you
took the
didn't.
ACTs.
Okay. All right. Well, still, I'm sure you did well. So back to the music. What are you most proud of musically to this point in your career?
It's going to sound super cheesy, but it's this record. And I'll tell you why. There have been like we did in 2017 an album called Sacred Southern Soul, which is 3 different EPs. So Sacred was sort of like gospel rock, Southern was very country, and then Soul was like soul music. And so it was done that way on purpose, kind of show our 3 different genres. But this album, I think we do the best job at seamlessly blending in. Like a song like Paperback Novels is, if you listen to it, is it R&B? Is it Americana? Is it blues? It's kind of all of those really seamlessly where you can't really tell. They're sort of, they're blended up like a smoothie, It's like instead of just going where before we ate the banana and we ate the orange, we ate, the milk and the protein powder. Now you can't tell. It's just all in there together.
Blood red wine, paperback novels, here today, gone tomorrow. Get used, discarded and resold. We're all paperback novels, getting down, getting tattered, but each with the story of their own. Paperback novels.
And then lyrically, this album I feel like is the deepest album I've ever made, and it's deep in a way that doesn't rob it of its joy, which I think is important.
Wow, that's great. And what would you say then is the pot of gold for you in your career, but also, what do you wish for this album?
Honestly, I just want this album to help people. That's it. I don't really care about, and maybe it's because I'm on album number 12, or maybe it's because I have grown kids of my own, some who are recording artists for labels themselves. I just don't care about chart success and all that. I do if that chart success means that more people are hearing it and being positively affected by it. But chart success in and of itself, or Grammy Awards, or whatever awards you want to say, don't really mean anything to me, because I know at the end of the day, how much hubris would it be for me to think that I'm going to be remembered? I don't believe in legacy at all. I believe in influence. Legacy is about me. How will I be remembered? And the truth is, I won't. If you think about my great grandchildren, I'll be a name in an ancestry book. That's it. But my influence, what kind of father I was, what kind of grandfather I was, that can continue to be felt for many, many generations. So legacy is about me. How am I going to be remembered? I'm not. But my influence can be felt for many generations. I think the same thing about music. It's not about me being remembered. It's not about me getting rewards or awards, either one. It's about me helping people. And that can be everything from helping someone find their faith to helping someone sing along when they've had a bad day. It doesn't have to be big. I mean, you can have influence on somebody by holding the door for them, or you can rescue them on the side of the road when they've had a car accident. They're both positive things. Obviously, one has at least an immediate bigger impact, but you just never know. So, I would love to hear stories about somebody saying, you know what, I had lost my faith in God and humanity, and I discovered it by listening to your music. I also love to hear I was having a bad day and my kids wouldn't shut up, and I turned on Crossover and it just brought a smile to my face. So I think both of those, I just want the album to do that sort of thing for as many people as possible.
But have you noticed, Jason, that when you are being authentic, truly, in your music, in your life, that you do have a further outreach, and that there is kind of more synergy with it, and you are able to touch more people?
Yeah, I think people intuitively respond to authenticity. Because it's, the thing about the human experience is this: every one of our stories is completely unique, and at the same time, none of them is completely unique. The way myself and my father's relationship was uniquely our own, yet I'm not the first son who lost a father to cancer. You know what I'm saying? So, and this, at the exact same time, every one of our experiences is just ours, yet it's also every man's experience. And so I think when you're authentic in lyrics, people can feel that and they can relate something of their story to it.
Agreed.
Jason, I have to say, I really want to just thank you for what you've done, what you've said here in this show, because I think anyone who goes to see you play is going to benefit from it. Anyone who listens to your music is going to benefit from it. Anyone who watches this episode is going to be better for it, because of what you're saying, the way you're saying it, and your authentic, inspirational message. So I just want to thank you for that.
I appreciate that. That means a lot. To me, anything else is a waste of time. Anything I do that only benefits me at this point in my life is just a waste of time.
Well, that's a great way to look at it. And again, one more nugget of wisdom and inspiration for the folks that are watching the episode this week. So Jason, again, we really, really are so glad that we had a chance to get to know the person behind the music and the depth of the person behind the music. We wish you all the best. With one last thing, we know that it's going to do well. It really is a great album, folks. And it literally, you can have any kind of mood, any kind of day, whatever you're feeling or want to be feeling, just pick a song. There's a song for wherever you need it to be on that album. So thanks again, Jason, for joining us this week. Folks, thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.
When I was a boy, my favorite toy